Two students and a school caretaker, the three innocents who lost their lives in seconds in a city now in mourning. Barnaby Webber's family described him as a beautiful, bright, brilliant young man. He was killed after a night out alongside Grace Kumar. Ian Coates was stabbed as his van was stolen. Also ahead, some breaking news. A boat has capsized off the coast of Greece. Hundreds are rescued, but dozens are dead. Hundreds more are missing. We'll have the latest. The boss of ITV says she doesn't recognise accusations of a toxic culture on This Morning. But Dame Carolyn McCall tells MPs Philip Schofield's relationship with a younger colleague was deeply inappropriate.
If we had had any evidence or knowledge of that, if Philip had said that to us, we would have acted swiftly in that we would have investigated and we would have taken action.
Strike UK, how the three-day junior doctors walkout is hitting hospitals across England, and could this sound of the summer soon be scrapped? The council wanting to ban ice cream vans.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Nina Hossain.
Good afternoon. Three families across the country are mourning the three lives cut short after a night of violence in Nottingham. Barnaby Webber and Grace Kumar were both students, both athletes, both 19. Their sudden deaths stunning all who had met them in their hometowns or in the city they had chosen to study in. The third victim was named this morning as Ian Coates, a site manager at a primary school in the city. Police have yet to discuss a motive for the attacks, but it's understood the suspect had a history of mental health issues. Lucy Watson has the latest.
Two innocent teenage lives taken with no explanation as to why. Barnaby Webber was an adored older brother. He was just 19. His parents, David and Emma, and sibling Charlie said in a statement, "Complete devastation is not enough to describe our pain and loss at the senseless murder of our son." Barnaby Philip John Webber was a beautiful, brilliant, bright young man with everything in life to look forward to. At his local cricket club in Taunton, they are mourning a talented and passionate player.
I think I knew him since he was age 9, and he grew into a fine man, good athlete, big smile, big grin, and always very polite, engaging and respectful.
Grace Kumar died alongside Barnaby on their way home from a night out. She was also a keen sportswoman and played hockey for her country. This morning, England Hockey said, "We are deeply saddened by the news of the tragic death of Grace Kumar." Grace was a popular member of the England under-16 and under-18 squads, and our thoughts are with Grace's family, friends, teammates and the whole hockey community at this time. The third victim was Ian Coates, a school caretaker. Nottingham is a city recovering yet still reeling from the dreadful events of the past 24 hours, which began when police were called to Ilkeston Road just after 4 a.m. yesterday, where they found Barnaby and Grace stabbed and unresponsive. Ian Coates was then killed on Magdala Road. It's thought the suspect stole his van and drove it at pedestrians on Milton Street, injuring 3 others. Officers found that vehicle and arrested a 31-year-old man on Maple Street. These inexplicable attacks have prompted so many questions from the public and police.
The tragic events that unfolded this morning.
And there has been an outpouring of grief in this city. The lives of its young students touched by the deaths of teenagers on the same path they are. Lucy Watson, ITV News.
Ben Chapman is in the city. Ben, what is the latest from there?
Well, this is where those two students, Barnaby and Grace, were found yesterday morning. The police cordon has now been lifted. Most of the police activity here has now come to an end. Instead, people have been coming here to leave flowers. It is just around the corner from where these two students were living in student accommodation. It is thought that they had been on their way home from a night out, and I've been speaking to a student who went on nights out with Barnaby, who said that this has all struck very close to home, and that students here are really in shock that this could have happened here in this student community.
And Ben, while we wait for an update from the police, what more do we know about a possible motive for these attacks?
Well, we haven't had an update from Nottinghamshire Police since they said yesterday that they were keeping an open mind about motive. We have learned a little bit more about the suspect they have in custody. Several sources have confirmed to ITV News that he is originally from West Africa and has a history of mental health problems. He continues to be questioned by detectives on suspicion of murder.
Ben Chapman, thank you. Some breaking news this lunchtime. A boat has capsized off the coast of Greece and it's believed dozens of people have drowned. The report was reportedly carrying migrants from Libya to Italy. More than 100 people have been rescued, but authorities fear the death toll could rise further. John Ray is here. What more do we know at this stage?
Well, Nina, we've become all too accustomed, haven't we, to these tragedies, but this is potentially on a scale which is truly distressing. We know so far that 59 people have drowned, but it's feared there were many, many hundreds, maybe as many as 600 people on what would have been a very, very overcrowded fishing boat. It capsized about 50 miles off the Greek coast. So far, 104 people have been rescued. They've been taken to hospital, as these pictures show, in the Greek city of Kalamata. A huge search operation continues. As you say, this boat was apparently en route from Tobruk in Libya to Italy. It is a well-worn migrant route. A staggering 70,000 such crossings have taken place so far this year alone. That's bigger than any figure since records began. And of course, we're only just coming into the summer sailing season. It's worth remembering that European nations pay various militia groups in Libya a lot of money to effectively act as border guards for Europe. The British government is stationing British police in Libya this year to try to cut the flow of migrants. On the evidence of this, it's not working. It's not saving lives. It's not stopping people making the crossing.
John Ray, thank you very much. Thank you. ITV bosses have told MPs they don't recognise allegations of a toxic culture on This Morning. The Chief Executive, Dame Carolyn McCall, and the Managing Director, Kevin Lygo, were being questioned about safeguarding at the channel after Philip Schofield quit ITV after lying about an affair with a younger colleague. Dame Carolyn said that relationship was deeply inappropriate, but denied covering it up, saying if there had been any evidence, they would have taken action. Geraint Vincent has been listening to this morning's hearing. Lots to cover. Take us through some of the main points that you heard.
The hearing began with that affair that you mentioned being addressed, and the bosses saying that they had been misled over it. When they investigated, they said they were repeatedly told nothing was happening and that both men involved denied it, both formally and informally. Now, you remember Philip Schofield described the relationship as unwise but not illegal. Well, in Westminster this morning, his former boss described exactly why the relationship shouldn't have happened. Have a listen.
If we had had any evidence or knowledge of that, if Philip had said that to us, we would have acted swiftly in that we would have investigated and we would have taken action. However that action would be, I can't say because it's hypothetical, because it would depend on when and where. But it was inappropriate to have a relationship with someone so junior in daytime.
Now, since Philip Schofield left ITV, there has been extensive coverage of allegations of a toxic culture. On This Morning, one of the MPs on the committee quoted an anonymous message he said he'd received from current and former staff members about how people were bullied and no one did anything about it. Another described ITV as a terrible place to work. Here was the Chief Executive's response.
It is not something I recognise that characterises the whole culture at all. We've told you that we have had 5 complaints in 5 years on daytime, and we've taken all of them seriously, and only 2 of them were about bullying.
Now, the man who Philip Schofield was having an affair with has made it clear that he doesn't want to be identified in this matter. He was referred to throughout the hearing as Person X. And the bosses said he was approaching ITV for counselling, and the bosses said they were helping him. Dame Carolyn also confirmed that Philip Schofield is also receiving counselling, and that she is, she said, very concerned for his welfare.
Garrett Vincent, thank you very much. Thank you. The UK economy bounced back in April, boosted by stronger spending in pubs, bars and shops. Figures released by the Office for National Statistics show GDP increased by 0.2% for the month after a 0.3% fall in March. Increased car sales for the month also contributed to the slight rise. Vodafone and the owners of 3 Mobile have agreed a merger which looks set to create the biggest UK network worth up to £15 billion. The group say the tie-up will help them compete with their rivals in the rollout of 5G. They hope the deal will be completed by the end of next year. And an Anglian Water TV advert has been pulled because it has failed to mention the company's history of releasing sewage into local rivers. The Advertising Standards Authority has imposed the ban after a number of complaints were made. Junior doctors have walked out again in their latest strike over pay and conditions. At 7 o'clock this morning, the doctors, which make up nearly half of the medical workforce in the NHS, stopped routine care. They'll strike from today until 7 a.m. on Saturday. 98% of junior doctors voted in favour of strike action, a record number. They want a 35% pay rise, which they say is restoration of their pay to 2008 levels. Martin Stew is outside the Royal Berkshire Hospital in Reading. How is the hospital coping today?
Well, Nina, this is the 3rd time we've now had a junior doctor strike, and management here say they're begrudgingly getting pretty good to crisis management. So actually inside A&E this morning, and you can hear the ambulances going past now, things are operating pretty smoothly and it's not that busy. Waiting times aren't too bad at all. There is one different thing, though, with this strike compared to previous ones, and that is this sunny weather. Actually, at the beginning of this week, with a high humidity and pollen, they saw a record number of patients coming in, 673 compared to 400 they normally have. And NHS bosses say that picture is being replicated right across the country.
We are prioritising emergency services. With the hot weather, and particularly therefore the rise in respiratory illnesses, in hay fever and in asthma, emergency departments are extremely busy. And therefore, by drafting in consultants, senior nurses, physicians associates to cover and prioritise emergency services, it's inevitable that appointments for planned care will have to be rescheduled.
And it's those appointments that are the key thing. More than 500,000 have been cancelled as a result of strike action over the last year. Every strike day, 500 just here. You roll out across the country and you get the picture. And that is worrying when they're still trying to catch up from the deficit, which was made worse by the pandemic.
Martin, the key question is, do you think that the two sides are anywhere near reaching an agreement to bring this industrial action to an end?
It doesn't look like it, Nina, not at the moment, no. As you mentioned in the lead-in, the British Medical Association want a 35% pay restoration, as they describe it. The government have offered 5%. They say that's fair and that other unions for other areas like paramedics have accepted that. But those on picket lines today say the government isn't moving far enough and they're threatening further strike action.
I'm really, really sorry that it's come to this. The government are completely at blame. They can stop the strikes today, tomorrow, even on Friday. All they need to do is come to us and present us with a meaningful, credible offer that we can put to the membership. If they're not able to do that, unfortunately, the strikes will go on.
And the BMA saying they could see 3 days of strike action every month going forward. Add on to that the nurses and consultants who are also being balloted for more strike action. We're not out of the woods yet, I'm afraid, Nina.
Martin, thank you. The former US president has turned his latest court appearance into a campaign issue. A defiant Donald Trump was cheered by his supporters hours after he pleaded not guilty to criminal claims of mishandling secret documents. He is simultaneously running for office again and facing the prospect of being jailed for years. Here's Robert Moore.
Donald J. Trump.
The former president, fresh from being charged in a federal courtroom, arrived back at his New Jersey golf club last night, projecting defiance. And to his supporters and donors, he expressed utter contempt for the whole legal process that he had just endured.
It's a political persecution like something straight out of a fascist or a communist nation. This day will go down in infamy, and Joe Biden will forever be remembered as not only the most corrupt president in the history of our country, but perhaps even more importantly, the president who, together with a band of his closest thugs, misfits, and Marxists, tried to destroy American democracy. But they will fail, and we will win bigger and better than ever before.
Trump had emerged from the Miami courthouse a few hours earlier, attempting to turn the ignominy of a federal indictment into a political circus. He even made a campaign-style stop at a Cuban-American cafe and lapped it up as supporters marked his 77th birthday, which is today.
What a great group of people. What a great group.
He is attempting to make light of the gravity of the charges, which relate to him holding on to top-secret documents after he left the presidency. Boxes even kept in a bathroom in his Florida resort.
The prosecutor in the case, I will call it our case, is a thug. I've named him Deranged Jack Smith.
After launching that deeply personal attack on the special counsel leading the case against him, Trump vowed a final retribution if he wins back the presidency next year.
I will totally obliterate the deep state. We will obliterate the deep state. And we know who they are. I know exactly who they are.
This was another inflammatory response to his legal troubles. And despite the defiance and the cheers on display, nothing can disguise the fact that a former president of the United States, who is running for office again, may be facing many years behind bars. Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
Here, the former Prime Minister's resignation honours list was the focus for the current Prime Minister's questions today. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, accused Rishi Sunak of being too weak to block Boris Johnson's peerages, saying those who helped cover up Johnson's law-breaking are now being rewarded by becoming lawbreakers. Our political correspondent Shihab Khan was listening. How did Mr Sunak respond?
Well, this was a topic that Rishi Sunak wouldn't want to talk about. This is him having to defend his actions about an honours list that wasn't submitted by himself but written by his predecessor, Boris Johnson. And Nina, as you mentioned, the Labour leader today highlighted the fact that there are some on that list who were serving in Downing Street at the time of the Partygate scandal. This was the exchange on that topic between the two men.
Those who threw a Downing Street party the night before the late Queen sat alone at her husband's funeral will now receive awards from the King. If he's so tough, why didn't he block it?
I and the government follow due process and convention. Prime Ministers of both parties have always upheld the convention of non-interference on political honours.
And the Prime Minister's being criticised by all sides on this. Labour's criticising him. He's also been criticised by some of his own MPs, including his former boss, the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. They've been locked in a war of words. Boris Johnson said the Prime Minister was talking rubbish when he said that Boris Johnson had asked him to overrule the vetting process. He's also being criticised by Nadine Dorries, a current sitting Tory MP, who's accusing the Prime Minister of blocking her peerage, something he denies. So it's a headache that has continued to keep going for the Prime Minister.
Shihab Khan, thank you. Finally, when you think of ice cream vans, do you think of the sound of the summer or the sound and smell of idling engines? In one part of London, it might soon be harder to get a Mr Whippy on a sunny day. Greenwich Council wants to ban them. Helen Keenan explains why.
A sound very much associated with summer that could soon be silenced.
Can I get £2.99 please, mate?
Branded as a nuisance by a council, ice cream vans could be banned on streets in the capital.
That would be a shame, especially for the little one. Like, he's always happy to have his ice cream.
You don't want to take away someone's livelihood, but at the same time, we've got to think about what's going on with the environment.
It's like a surprise treat for yourself on a nice day like today, so cheers, keep them, we need them.
There are concerns over how much pollution they produce, with many running on diesel and idling engines, and the queues cluttering views of tourist hotspots.
The area proposed includes streets close to here on King William Walk and by the Old Royal Naval College because of its location next to the Cutty Sark, a maritime heritage site.
The impacted areas include more than 30 roads in Greenwich and Woolwich. Under the changes, vendors would be allowed to trade for up to 15 minutes on the streets, then move elsewhere and not return on the same day.
The council say it will be subject to consultation.
Let's keep this in perspective. Ice cream vans are seasonal by the pure nature. The amount of time we spend on the roads is minimal, and what we do encourage is people to get out of their homes, to meet up, to talk to each other.
So, is it a summer tradition or a problem polluter? A decision is due to be made today on whether the ice cream vans will be frozen out. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
That's all we've got time for this lunchtime. Lucrezia is here with the evening news at 6:30 from everybody on today's team. Bye-bye.